Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Revamped. I am ex-consultant from Deloitte USI and currently pursuing my first year MBA at IIM Tiruchirappalli. Today I'm going to be focusing on few frameworks and what are the key quality points which you should remember while drafting your resume, because summer internship process is going to start super soon, and if you are any MBA college student who's watching this, I would really request you to take notes, because I have done this process earlier, and given the rigorous life of the MBA where we have to focus on a lot many things, this is something which I was able to do well because of my experience, and hence I'm sharing these frameworks and quick tips as to you can use readily so that you are able to build your resume better with given points which you already have, because we have less time, and before it freezes in your MBA college you need to ensure that all the good master CV points are there in your resume. So quickly, without wasting any time, I wanted to shift to few frameworks first. So the number one framework which I usually use is the STAR framework. What that means is situation, task, action, result. Whenever you're drafting any points for your CV, maybe you can start your approach maybe by a Word file or an Excel file, and you can just write down all the points which you have done from your high school, from your college to your work experience if you have it, or if not, maybe just focus on the projects or the good work which you have done throughout your college, the projects, the achievements which you have both academically or extracurricular wise, and ensure that you have those written in quick crisp bullet points or maybe few liners within your master CV. Now how will we transform that is where we use these frameworks. Now how do you use this framework? The STAR framework is, you take the situation which you handled or you worked upon, and then you go around it as what tasks were you able to finish which impacted your project or your team or your work or enhanced your deliverable in a certain way. You put it down, you frame it accordingly, and then what you do is you write it in an action oriented way, that what are the key actions which you are able to do and what result or what impact it had. And I'll also give you one example of it. Now usually, let's say if you are from work experience, many people write about leading the teams, and now I'll specifically use this example. Let's say if you were in certain project where team members were not very good in numbers. Let's say you were just in a 3 or 5 member team in a certain project maybe for 1 year. Now how will you say? Will you say that you only led 2 people or 3 people? Maybe you can say that, but how you can better quantify it is write about the situation or task as to what work or how transformative work which you did, what were the actions which impacted maybe your client side or maybe your work company, and then the result could not just be leading the team for a successful deliverable, but your result could also be the impact, the net value of the project which is being delivered. So think around the situation which you have worked upon. If you are not having good work experience when it comes to leading the teams or when it comes to position of responsibilities, you can talk through or talk about the impact of the project amount. Let's say if you're working on $1 million project, take approval from your manager that what could be the approximate value of that project and how much delivery impact which you had, and you can then write it using your STAR framework. Another example of this could also be, if you, let's say you're not able to highlight the $1 million or whatever amount of project which you're working on, then you can focus on the number of people who were impacted through the project which you did. Now you can again bucket it in two things. Number one could be, if you're again in work experience, you could have done surveys or your work will be directly impacting certain number of users which you can mention. But let's say if you're a person who's a fresher and who is also only having, let's say, college work experience or the project work experience from his college life, now what you can do is, again, the project which you are doing could have been taken survey from the lot of students which you are working on, or whatever project you are doing. Essentially these projects are also part of the research work of the faculties who do these works. So how much impact in terms of customers or students your project has had could be highlighted through this framework as well. I'll quickly go on to the second framework, which is CAR. Again, this is challenge, action, result. What that means is, let's say if you're not able to assess your task well, just simply close your eyes and think about the challenges which you faced over the project, over the work which you are doing. It could be the smallest of project, but highlighting it in the most impactful way is more important key aspect here. And I'm not saying this just for making any resume pointer. You need to think like this. Let me give you a story or a context, because I met a lot of students at IIM Trichy and they were struggling with their resumes, and when they were asking me, I wanted to tell them we are not just doing this for the sake of getting any SIP or placement. While we approach life, we need to think it in this way, that whatever work we are doing is not being compared from the impact value of what others are delivering. This is impact value of you as an individual who has, let's say, seen life in a certain way, and he or she is growing in his particular work or deliverable by whatever value you're adding to the customers or your clients. Now, growing in that particular field is very important. It could be smallest of impact, but it is big impact for you. So quantifying it is important. Don't feel like you are just over showcasing yourself. You are doing this because you have added some value to a certain number of clients. It could be a small number as 10, it could be a bigger number as 50, 500, whatever. But that doesn't mean that the impact which you are giving to 10 people is less. So never think or approach your CV pointers in that way, that you are just doing it for the placement perspective. You are doing it for a way that you have done something good in your life and how well you represent it. For example, whenever you, let's say, make friends, peers, or you go out, or you want to learn from someone, you look for the best, right? So why do you hesitate in bringing out the best points in yourself? That's my approach which I use when I write the resume, and that helps me to quantify my points better, which I wanted to share. Now, another framework which people often use is the PAR framework, which is again known as problem, action, and result. Now, let's say you're not able to assess your situation and challenges well, but there is a certain problem which you have actually solved. Now, I'll give my example. In my PMO role or project management representative role at Deloitte, I had a lot of work streams which I was working with, and there were certain problems which were specific to me which I was solving on my own. And when you solve those problems, again relating it with the impact which you have done, or if you have streamlined a certain process, and let's say leave the consulting examples for that matter. Let's say if you are an audit personnel or a person who has maybe work in plant or factories, there are different problems which are going on the floors of your workforce, and when you have an impact on that, when you solutionize them, you can actually use this PR framework to quantify those points better and then come up with numbers. It could be as small as when you're working on a machine, maybe let's say you work on the lean startup or lean Six Sigma methodologies, and you reduce the waste amount, you increase the efficiency by a certain, it could be as low as 5 hours or 10 hours per week, but it is still a quantifiable points. And that's why I was highlighting this fact, because one of my friend has done this work, and even then he was not able to quantify it in this way. That's where you need to use these frameworks to quantify your points better, because when you present your resume, everyone is going to be having good points already entered. The quantifiable parts makes an important impact, and these points, let's say if you're not able to get approvals from your managers, at least make sure that those points are quantifiable in a way which are also believable in some manner. Obviously, without verification from manager, you won't be able to write the overall impact value of the project, but maybe managing efficiency, increasing those efficiency by few hours every week, these are the smallest of points which you can use with approval from your seniors, of course from college. But at least you can do this by instead of writing no quantifiable points at all, and that's what I wanted to highlight through this video. Another framework which I often use, and I was just going through my notes, is the problem solution impact. Again, this is linked to the frameworks which we have been using. But let's say if you were working on a certain weekly project, and that was having, let's say if you're working on a live project for that matter. Now initially, obviously you would have been given KT, you must not be driving impact value from day one, but let's say over the project you identified certain problems which then introduced or increased the efficiency of project in the future. Then you use that framework of problem and solution, you make those two columns and write down all the key learnings which you proactively learned in your project, and then quantify it accordingly to reach a certain impact, and then that impact could be written directly in your CV. In fact, I'll just give me 1 minute. I'll also focus on what pointers I wrote so that I can again give some good examples to you. So now when you're working on different projects, you can actually use terms like risk or RACI log. What that means, like you can search more about it on Google. Let's say for RAID is risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. Now how do you use these is, whenever you're working on a certain project, every project, depending on the stakeholders which we are working with, has certain risks, certain assumptions, and by that you manage those stakeholders better. Now how you do it is, you, regardless of the smallest of project, you are reporting to someone. Even if you are in college, you are reporting to your faculty or few mentors or seniors for that matter. So the major risks of the project which you have identified, the assumptions which were either transformed to risk or who went to the decision log, the impact it created, the stakeholders you have been informing, and how it increased the 100% compliance when you were able to complete that particular project. These are also some quantifiable points which you can add in your resume accordingly. Now again, when it comes to the POR perspective, and I'm switching this from the roles and responsibility to the POR perspective, because there are very many friends who reached out to me stating that they are not having good position of responsibilities and how they can maybe quantify those points from the project. See, obviously the most important factors in the PORs would be the teams which we have led. If you are certainly part of some clubs and committees, or if you have done some work where you have led teams and achieved some quantifiable value. But let's say in the worst case, if you are not having any of that, you must have worked on certain projects, some projects in your life from high school or colleges, right? So take approvals from your faculties or reach out to them and understand if you can write F2, you led a team of 3, 5, 7, or any number for that matter, and then you led those teams to understand and then create a value that you were able to successfully complete that project. Now quantifying it in a manner that, let's say it was a 5-month project, but you identified the RAID log risks, the REC risks, or the decision logs, and then you finish that project from 5 months to 3 months. You reduce the time. That efficiency also you can again quantify. If you led or directed a 3-member or a 5-member team, that also goes in certain position of responsibility, because that is something which you did over time for the span of few months. Now when I'm giving these advices, these are again coming from my experiences, but it has worked well for me. It has helped me in my Deloitte interview before as well, and that's why I'm sharing it readily. Because if you're a person who's not having good PORs, that doesn't mean that you have to not enter any POR. If you can take certain approvals, even which are project based, you can actually mention that by taking some guidance from your seniors, and that will in fact work well, given that you actually created some impact value and you are able to talk about that when given a chance in front of either seniors or your placement process for that matter. Now Capstone project and the academic project work which you have done, these are also some good important points which you can add in your resume. In fact, I'll mention that after writing your PORs and achievements which you have done over time, you can directly go into your academic achievements and then Capstone and academic project, because these are the easiest way to quantify your points. That is what something which I was highlighting over time in the last few points or from frameworks, that when you use these points when it comes to your Capstone project, this is like build 5 to 6 months project which every person does in his or her last semester. Now the impact value or the survey value or the impact value when it comes to the completion of project, how it helped in the research work, how it maybe eased out the work of your faculty in doing his or her research. Adding those points and then quantifying those points can also help your resume to add some good value points, or maybe increasing some points which you are having in your resume. And one last point which I'll hit on is for certain certifications. Let's say if you're still having trouble with filling your good resume pointers, you can actually work on certifications readily. And how you can do that is either like for fillers, you can actually quickly go on Coursera and complete those courses. But if you can actually have invest some money, get some good product management or some general management or Six Sigma courses, or maybe if there are particular field which you're looking forward to, and if your senior has suggested something, I would request you to take those courses early, because eventually within few months when you enter any IIM, your resume would be freezed. So you need to ensure that at least, even if it is as small as the lowest level of Six Sigma belt, even that is an important certification which you can show, because when these resumes are scanned, these terms are very important, and these terms give you a lot of talking points when it comes to your interview. And then how you drive your interview, that is obviously on you. If you need, you can mention that in the comment. I'll again make a video depending on that as well, to help you with your interview or how you can drive your interview preparation as well. And the last point which I wanted to hit on was the extracurricular activities and others. Now many times when people create the resume, they forget about this thing, that your extracurricular activities, your achievements, your interests are equally important. And why I'm saying that is not just to fill your resume. Those gives you a filling or important points as to how you drive your interview. Let's say interviewers know that you are a person who is following all the all the good content, and you are already an MBA person who is doing his flagship MBA course from the best of colleges, IIMs for that matter, how you differentiate yourself is from the interests and the extracurricular activities which you have drive through. Maybe many times your SIP recruiters or placement recruiters will come and they'll just look at the last point of your CV, but that gives you a driving point and edge in all of your resume if you can better drive it. If there are certain achievements, even if they are at high school level, you should focus on that, and if you can do that, it will help you drive some value. So those were all the important points which I wanted to mention. Also, avoid using jargons or very technical terms. Try to explain it in a line or two if it's super important, because those people might not know about the jargon terms which you are using, which are industry specific. And those are all the inputs which I wanted to give. Still, if you have any doubts, you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn link, which is given in my YouTube description. Thanks for watching this video till the last. Looking forward to see you in the next